This woman lost her life because she literally fell into a vat of chocolate and drowned. Quick disclaimer that I'm just a girl, I'm not a lawyer, and all this information is publicly available. Also, who noticed I chopped my hair? I love it. Okay, Svetlana Rosalinda was a 24-year-old woman working in the Sergio K confectionery factory in Ferdoskino, Russia. In December of 2016, Svetlana was just going in for another day of work like normal. The factory produced chocolate and caramel on a massive assembly line. Imagine huge industrial vats that melt and mix ingredients at super high temperatures. Imagine thick, boiling chocolate rotating constantly with churning paddles. It sounds magical if you're thinking about it in a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory kind of way, but in reality, it's actually a very dangerous environment even for trained workers. Svetlana was reportedly in the packaging area when she supposedly dropped her phone or a document. Some reports say different things, so she dropped something into a vat of chocolate. And here's where the story turns into a nightmare. When she reached in to grab it, she got sucked in by the rotating paddles of the machine. And she reached in before anyone could shut off the machine. So while the paddles were spinning, she was getting pulled into the boiling hot vat of chocolate. The industrial paddles were rotating at full force. Nearby coworkers say they heard her scream before getting sucked in. Oh, that's so scary and sad. But by the time anyone could actually stop the machine from rotating, it was too late. Witnesses later described the scene as, quote, like something from a nightmare, end quote. Emergency responders were called immediately, but unfortunately they couldn't recover anything intact. Her body had been completely mangled by the machine. The horror of this entire situation left coworkers traumatized. Some even had to take days off to get psychiatric assistance. Many had been standing nearby when it happened, and they all just watched being helpless. And I know I post these videos and I talk about gory things all the time, but if I saw something like that in real life, I would definitely need a few days to process, and I think I would need to go to therapy. And of course, this freak accident led authorities to launch an investigation on whether the factory had followed proper safety protocols. The vats were supposed to have safety grates to prevent workers from falling in or being pulled in by the machinery. But apparently the equipment had been malfunctioning for weeks, and that negligence had a huge role in turning this tragic mistake into a fatal disaster. The factory, of course, temporarily shut down for the investigation, and the case quickly went viral in Russian media. It was described as one of the most horrifying workplace accidents ever reported in the country's food manufacturing history. People were shocked about how quickly and brutally an ordinary workday turned into a literal nightmare. Svetlana's story is more than just a tragic accident. It's a cautionary tale about safety and human error. The moment she was doing her job, and then the next, a split-second decision combined with malfunctioning machinery costed a woman her life. It also highlights how vital it is for a company to maintain safety standards because the consequences of cutting corners can be catastrophic. This story sticks with you because it's so surreal. Boiling chocolate doesn't sound fatal at first glance. It's sweet, it's tempting, it's even comforting. I mean, who doesn't love chocolate? I'm a huge Reese's Peanut Butter Cup girl. But in the wrong setting, like this one, it can be a lethal hazard. And for Svetlana, it was fatal in seconds. Svetlana's life was tragically cut short, and her story is a reminder of why these safety precautions exist, and why we should never take them for granted. Her story will serve as a warning, a memory, and a lesson for why safety is so important. That is everything I have on this case. Absolutely bizarre, wild, crazy. Can't even make this up. Like, it's actually insane. I would love to hear your thoughts on this one in the comments. I post true crime videos, so if you like. This 16-year-old girl was and unalived in her own basement by the neighborhood kids while under the care of a babysitter. This is the tragic story of Sylvia Likens. Trigger warning that this video does talk about the and unaliving of a minor, so if that is triggering to you in any way, shape, or form, please skip this video. Your mental health matters more, and I will see you in my next one. It all began one summer in 1965. Lester and Betty Likens were carnival workers, which meant that they traveled during the summer. As a result, they left their two daughters, 16-year-old Sylvia and 15-year-old Jenny, with a babysitter named Gertrude Banaszowski at their home in Indianapolis. Gertrude was paid $20 a week to care for the girls, which is equivalent to about $204 per week today. This doesn't sound like a lot, but Gertrude and her family were also living at the house, so I think it evens out. At first, things seemed normal. Sylvia hung out with her friends, she helped around the house, she loved listening to the Beatles, and for the most part, she just had a typical teenage life. But when payments from Lester and Betty started to delay, everything changed. Gertrude began to get really angry. She would start the girls with things like a belt, a paddle, and even a wooden spoon. And unfortunately, she focused most of her cruelty on Sylvia. Sylvia suffered from scalding hot baths, cigarette burns with a garden hose, and she was even branded with hot metal at one point with a message that said, quote, "I am a..." Absolutely horrible. Neighbors later recalled hearing screams coming from inside the house, and they noticed bruises on Sylvia, but didn't say anything, didn't report it to police. Nothing happened. No one intervened. And because of the negligence of everyone around her, Sylvia suffered tremendously. Soon, it wasn't just Gertrude during Sylvia. Gertrude's own kids who were living in that house and other teenagers from the neighborhood would start to her. Even Sylvia's sister Jenny was manipulated into participating under a threat that if she didn't participate, she would be next to be. The abuse had been going on for months at this point and was relentless. And on October 26, 1965, Sylvia had passed away. She was found on a soiled mattress. Gertrude found her, screamed at her to get up, and once she realized that she was no longer alive, Gertrude called police. The police arrested Gertrude because Sylvia was under Gertrude's care, and the trial began in May of 1966. Gertrude was convicted of first-degree and was sentenced to life in prison. And Gertrude's daughter Paula, who was also living in the house, received second-degree charges, and the other neighborhood kids that participated in the of Sylvia faced charges for their horrific roles in her. There was public outrage over the neighbors' silence, and Sylvia's unspeakable led Indiana to pass a mandatory reporting law for child abuse. Sylvia's story inspired support centers and advocacy programs. At least there was one good thing to come out of her story, and that is future support for others. This was a community failure. A teenager forced into a nightmare by the very people who were paid to protect her, and who were supposed to protect her. Even her sister was manipulated into. Sylvia's name now stands as a reminder. When we see suffering, especially with children, it needs to be reported. And it's on all of us to act. This story was a really rough one to cover because it was just so sad. She was an innocent teenager who had no one looking out for her. Her parents were away, and this babysitter that came just absolutely ruined her life. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for listening to Sylvia's story, and thank you for spending time with me. I'd love to know your thoughts about this case in the comments, and if there are any other cases you want me to cover, please let me know as well. I post true crime videos almost every day, so if you like this kind of content, follow to see more, and please, please, please stay safe out there. You never know what's around the corner.